네,
We are going to get started, and I am Hyunjoo, curator for the Arco Art Center for the local Indo making closing event. We'll be also joined by a lot of the visitors and participants in different time zones. Thank you very much for your time today. For today's closing event, we are also joined by the audience so that we can get to know more stories about their work of the artist. I'm sure that there will be some participants who have already been to the exhibition so that you can freely share your ideas and impressions. And to the audiences, let me announce the few housekeeping notes. We are also providing simultaneous interpretation in English and Korean, so you can check and tune in the language preferences. And the four artists, if you have any questions or any inquiries, and you can also leave any questions on the Q&A, the chat button on the bottom, so that we can all collect your questions and give the answers during the Q&A sessions for the second part. So for the exhibitions, I'd like to share some of the pictures on the exhibitions. The concept of the locality has been changed a lot. And it's not anymore only limited in the the districts. Now for the changes and the lifestyles during the pandemic. So based on the new changes and perspectives, we'll be also looking at the 14 artists. But today for the closing event, 𝗟𝗢𝗖𝗔𝗟 and the 𝗟𝗢𝗖𝗔𝗟 will not be joining, so that excluding the two artists, the 12 teams will be also joining for a closing event. And some of the artists are on the way to have the full internet connection, so that we'll also see how it goes after their internet connection and status. And now we'll be also joined by the more artists, and the order of the presentations will be the order from the first floor. So first presenter will be the Komunitas Gubuak Kopi. So for the audiences, as you have been today or the previously, and that the artist and the work of Komunitas Gubuak Kopi was the first work that you have entered. Of course, we'll be joined by Umali, but Indonesia. So could you also share the pictures on the exhibitions?
So if you and many people are gathered in the Solok, in front of Solok, and it is a gathering place for the residents and many people. So we will get to see many of the local story and networking, and also solidarity making here. And for Indonesian team, we have a translation from Indonesian to English and Korean to English to Korean. So we may have some time delays. I would like to ask for your understanding.
Terima kasih pada kesempatannya untuk terlibat dalam pameran ini. Sebelumnya kami perkenalkan. Komunitas Gubuak Kopi adalah sebuah kelompok belajar untuk seni dan media di lingkup lokal Solok, Sumatera Barat. Dan kita bekerja meneliti, mengembangkan seni masyarakat, kemudian mengorganize kolaborasi masyarakat, kemudian mengorganize kolaborasi antara penulis profesional seperti peneliti dengan masyarakat, serta peneliti mengelola masyarakat serta pengembangan kreativitas anak muda. Proyek ini bagian dari platform yang kami kelola sejak tahun 2017. Namanya adalah platform Daur Subur, sebuah studi mengenai kebudayaan yang berkembang di masyarakat pertanian di Solok dan di Sumatera Barat secara umum. Daur Subur berupaya menggali aspek pengetahuan dari beragam peristiwa kebudayaan masyarakat pertanian, keberlangsungannya, dan meresponnya untuk memahami persoalan hari ini. Studi ini juga melibatkan beragam partisipan dari berbagai komunitas, beragam latar belakang dan disiplin seni.
So this project is also actually part of the project that we have been organized since 2017 called 𝗟𝗢𝗖𝗔𝗟, or it is literally translated as fertile cycle. And this is actually a study regarding the agriculture in Solok specifically, but also in West Sumatra more generally. And we study about the events regarding agriculture in Solok, West Sumatra, its sustainability and its context for contemporary situations today. And also it involves various communities and also involve various people from other backgrounds, not only from art in this project.
Ya, sebagai tambahan, 𝗟𝗢𝗖𝗔𝗟 proyek ini berlangsung di Kelurahan Kampung Jawa di Solok, sebuah wilayah multikultural dan sebuah lokalitas yang terbentuk karena transmigrasi, dan ada banyak latar belakang kultural yang juga membawa pengetahuannya ke sini. Dan kemudian buat kami itu sangat menarik untuk menggali pengetahuan itu. Kemudian kami berupaya menjembatani kolaborasi antar warga, dan juga profesional, seniman, seperti itu. Dan kemudian kemudian kita menjadikan pos ronda sebagai ruang alternatif yang tidak dimiliki.
추가적으로 깐풍 잡화에 참가한 사람들은 굉장히 저희가 다문화 지역입니다. 수마트라에 있고요. 깐풍 자바라고 하는 지역은 이민으로 이루어진 곳입니다. 그리고 여러 가지 배경을 가지고 있는 사람들을 가지고 있습니다. 또 다양한 지식을 가지고 있고요. 그래서 저희의 그 커뮤니티 프로젝트에 더 많은 도움이 되었습니다. 시민들이라든지 주민이라든지 전문가라든지 예술가들이 다 참여를 해가지고 커뮤니티 활동을 했습니다. 그래서 협력과 그 지식 공유에 장이 되었던 것이죠.
Pos ronda sebelumnya sudah ada, dulu itu sebagai ruang untuk keamanan lingkungan, seperti dari tindakan kriminal, maling, dan lain sebagainya. Tapi kemudian kami berpikir untuk memperluas fungsi pos ronda, tidak hanya sesuatu yang sifatnya kriminal dan insiden, tetapi juga sesuatu yang semacam institusi alternatif untuk mengimajinasikan ruang hidup yang lebih baik dari inisiatif-inisiatif warga, atau mengupayakan keselamatan sendiri. Silakan, Eng.
이 공간은 깐풍에서 오랫동안 존재했던 공간입니다. 이 지역이 보안 지역이었기 때문에 범죄 활동을 막는 보안 지역이었습니다. 하지만 이제 확대가 되어서 그 환경의 이제 보안을 고려를 해서 사람들이 이제 그 주민도 참여할 수 있는 공간으로 전환되었습니다.
Dokumentasi tentang proses dari mengaktifasi pos ronda serta menghubungkan inisiatif tetangga, dan juga melibatkan beberapa seniman.
저희가 포스 론더의 그 프로세스를 문서화하는 것입니다. 시민들이 그리고 주민들 그리고 예술가들이 참여한 모습을 보실 수가 있습니다.
Yang nilai-nilai yang menarik selama berproses itu seperti nilai-nilai melakukan pertemuan-pertemuan, kemudian mengapresiasi inisiatif, kemudian melakukan permainan, dan juga memahami sebuah peristiwa secara spiritual.
그래서 핵심 가치가 있습니다. 이 프로세스를 관통하는 내용인데요. 사람들의 모임입니다. 그리고 그 이니셔티브에 대한 어떤 감사하는 마음이라 할 수가 있습니다. 인정하는 마음이고요. 그리고 또 커뮤니티 정신이라고 할 수 있겠습니다. 그리고 어떤 정신적인 차원에서의 어떤 커뮤니티라고 할 수 있겠습니다.
Yeah, this is the process of activate pos ronda. Ya, ini adalah presentasi pertama dari proyek ini. Jadi setelah kita melakukan proses, kita juga berdialog dengan para tetangga melalui sebuah pameran. Kita bikin pameran open lab singkat untuk membuka ruang dialog itu. Ada 2 kali pameran selama 1 tahun ini. Ini yang pertama.
이 시민들과의 과정 이후에 저희가 전시회를 했습니다. 그리고 또 전시회 중에 그걸로 발표라든지 그 오픈랩이라고 하는 짧은 과정을 통한 어떤 대회가 있습니다. 작년에는 이러한 전시회가 있었습니다.
Ya, ini adalah pameran kedua dan ya selama pameran itu kita memanfaatkan ruang itu untuk berdialog, saling mengkritisi dan kemudian saling menyimpulkan inisiatif-inisiatif untuk kita kelola bersama untuk ruang hidup yang lebih baik lah di masa depan. Dan kemudian proses inilah yang kami presentasikan di local in the making dan permainan domino. Itu dulu yang.
이것이 두 번째 전시회입니다. 전시회 중에 저희가 공간에 참여를 했습니다. 그리고 대화도 있었고 비평도 있었고 그리고 사람들이 하는 내용을 또 정리하는 시간도 있었습니다. 그리고 이니셔들을 그리고 깜뽕 지역에서의 더 좋은 삶을 위해서 어떻게 더 진행할지에 대해서도 얘기가 있었습니다.
Proses inilah yang kita bawa ke local in the making dan proses bermain domino adalah salah satu cara kita untuk menjembatani dialog, bermain, kemudian berdialog, membangun keakraban, kemudian membicarakan kampung halaman. Dan begitu juga di Korea, kita mengajak kawan-kawan untuk ikut terhubung dalam lokalitas ini melalui permainan tersebut. Dan yang ditandai oleh sebuah pohon.
이 프로젝트는 실제로 저희가 아르코에 있었던 제가 전시를 했던 내용입니다. 도미노 놀이를 하는 것이 보이고요. 저희가 사람들의 어떤 대화를 촉진하는 교각 역할을 했습니다. 그 캠핑과의 어떤 그 사람들의 그 어떤 그 협력을 위한 어떤 주체들을 사용했습니다. 아르코를 가져와서 깜뽕, 도미노 놀이라든지 그래서 어떤 사람들과 연결하기 위해서 가져왔습니다. 그리고 또 어떤 우승자 이런 것을 떠나서 서로 협력할 수 있는 기회가 되기 위해서 가져왔습니다.
Penanaman pohon, jadi selama berproses di sana, Alo, salah satu peserta yang telah meluangkan waktunya dan menunjukkan keinginannya untuk menjadi bagian. Ini adalah pohon yang kami tanam untuk itu. Dan ada seremoni kecil bersama para santri, tetangga, dan Pak RW.
그리고 아르코의 한 참가자가 있었습니다. 한국에서 그 도미노 그 게임을 했을 때 우승한 사람입니다. 그리고 깜풍자와에서 작은 그 어떤 나무를 심는 작은 행사를 했습니다. 예, 감사합니다.
Oke, saya kira itu saja.
네, 네, 그 마지막으로 같이 보셨던 장면이 이제 저희 오픈하면서 했던 그 도미노 게임이었죠. 거기서 이제 우승했던 분의 어떤 그것이 연동이 돼가지고 식수를 하는 그런 장면을 마지막으로 보셨습니다. 그래서 굉장히 어떤 이 전시 기간 중에 벌어졌던 어떤 활동들이 또 다른 지역들로 계속 확산되는 이야기를 만들어내는 게 굉장히 흥미있었던 그런 전시였던 것 같습니다.
So let's move on to the GEOJE 섬도. Thank you. So we are based in GEOJE Island. So we are very interested in the GEOJE Islands ecosystem and on the infrastructure there, especially the shipyards. I am related to shipyard my father used to work at DSME, and my brother is still working at the Samsung shipbuilding, heavy industries. So I'm coming from the blue collar. So that's why I'm interested in the laborers in the shipyard and maritime industry. As I was involved in this project, I thought about the beginning of this project. In 2019, I had a blue collar garden. I had a horticulture culture treatment program for the shipyard workers. I was involved in 2019. In 2020, I got evolved to the wave 2 and moved more focused on the shipyard and encounter more shipyard workers. So I was able to expand my project. At that time, the shipyard industry was in a poor shape, and there was many idle shipyards. So we made an exhibition at the idle shipyards, and that moved to wave 2, and that was a 2-year project. So in 2009 we had a wave 1, and wave 1 is focused more on the shipyard workers, and wave 2, which is taking place in the ARCO art center. It is involved in southeastern city of Korea, especially Busan, Masan, and GEOJE, and Masan, Ulsan, and we wanted to see the ecosystem of the southeast region of the Korean Peninsula. So we started off with a research, and based on research, we did a research trip. As we are investigating the shipyards and the maritime industry, so we are focused on the ocean and sea. So we went on the sailing and saw the sea, and we looked at the background. Each city has their industrial characteristics, and they're systematically related. So we wanted to have a conversation on this topic with professionals and residents. So we had a professional sailing forum to get to know how professionals think about this topic. And this story was reflected on the exhibition. We wanted to have an exhibition all along in the GEOJE area. Unlike other area, GEOJE area lacks the cultural events than other regions and exhibitions. So we wanted to have various exhibitions in GEOJE area. And we thought about which place would be the best place to have the exhibition. Because it's a shipyard city, we wanted to try to find a ship and shipyard, and we found a ship called 𝗟𝗔𝗟. It was an investigation ship used by military, and it was donated to the shipyard, and it was closed for 9 years. And we asked the GEOJE city to rent this 𝗟𝗔𝗟 to have our exhibition. And we've been asked by ARCO Art Center to represent the characteristics of 𝗟𝗔𝗟 and GEOJE Island. So we thought a lot about how we can best represent what's happening and what's being exhibited at 𝗟𝗔𝗟. So we use a VR. After this exhibition is over, 𝗟𝗔𝗟 will be closed to the public. So we had recorded 360-degree camera to show what's going on inside the ship and make the people feel and experience 𝗟𝗔𝗟. And we've been asked about why people are interested in the shipyard and 𝗟𝗔𝗟. I had a personal reason to do so, to get interested. But shipyard has been seen only from industrial perspective mostly. But shipyard is closely related to us, and culturally and humanistically speaking, they are related to us as well. And that can be an interesting approach. And I wanted to pursue that to do so. And I want to show other aspects of the industry, and I'm preparing the other project to show other side of the industry. Thank you. Thank you for your story.
And the OverLab, could you start your presentation? Good afternoon. I am based in Gwangju Metropolitan City, and OverLab is the independent artist space. And for the past 9 years, we have been invited from the Philippines. Of course, in the beginning, we have not specifically only focused on the Philippines for the collaborations, but thanks to some opportunities, and luckily we start exchanging our collaboration work with the Philippines artists. As you can see here, the artist, the work, we have exchanged it twice for exchanging our work and collaborations. And during the collaborations and the communications, and we were able to have some intervene and giving and taking the impacts as one of the major concerns for our collaborations. That's why back in 2016, probably since 2016, we have started the joint collaborations work. So one-on-one matching programs were also held to really understand and explore each other artists' work. So then in advance of the meetings, and then some artists were taking the online communications to explore the joint collaboration work. For the first year, we have conducted the workshop, and from the second year of our joint programs, and we really highlight to have the more in-person meetings into the residence. So that's why it required some space and the framework for the OverLab as the space. As well, the artists from the Philippines have been also providing the residence for Korean artists. So probably 2 months in Gwangju in Korea and the other 2 months in the Philippines were spent all together to explore our cultural characteristics for our collaboration work for our ICC. And last but not least, after the pandemic, indeed, of course, as you know, in-person communications were limited, but based on our sustained collaborations and online, the remote collaborations work were also held. That's why we have also transitions into the media to really expand our collaboration work across all the different efforts, so that the first source were also being exchanged to inspire each other's the motivation, so that the second and third series of the workshops have been also continuously held. When it comes to exchanging artist work, and within the local communities, we expected to have the open-minded communications, so that while looking towards the other countries' economic level, cannot be also only the one parameter to explore their artists and the cultural characteristics. So that's why we are in the same page as artists. We are being able to find out the merits or the lifestyles and philosophical, the common factors, so that we were able to continue our communications. Throughout the process, within art and within artist community, we have facing some of the limitations. That's why in terms of the more label arts, we have been putting our efforts to expand to our spectrum into the imaging workshops we have done so far for the last few years. For the participating artists, they have been mainly focusing on their topics or the idea, only focusing on their artist work. But imaging workshops is being the one of the powerful tool to all to collect very different texts and different contents within the very wide spectrum of the liberal arts, according to a lot of the artist comments. And for this year particular, I celebrating the 9th year of the collaborations, so that OverLab in Gwangju metropolitan city is being also the venue for the continuing the workshops, and the exhibitions in the Philippines have been also together. So altogether we have the 3 spaces to have our exhibitions as a part of the exchange programs. So therefore the next year, by commemorating the 10th year, based on our joint collaborations, we'll be also visiting the Philippines, and the archive exhibition will be also planned in the future. So that's all from my side. So first of all, I was also going to ask more the future progress, but especially during the remote area upon the pandemic, I was able to see that you have built very strong foundation to do so.
So NoNewWork, we are the feminist group creating a visual images. We came together to use our experience as a media to visually represent many of the issues about women that are still recurring. So our group is called our new work in the art residency. So a little bit of a long name. All the artists in our community is located in various locations in Jeju Island, in Germany, Canada, and in many parts of the region, Yangpyeong in Korea. The region I'm talking about, the regions, the basis of our, the regional basis of our artists is that we want to show that we have a background, regional diversity, geographical diversity, plus we wanted to have a direct contact of the artists in various areas across not only in Korea, but outside of Korea. So let me talk about NoNewWork residency. So we wanted to talk about the social safety net we believe that is lacking. The solidarity, we talk about solidarity, but we gather, but we disgather sometimes. And this is unstable situations I wanted to talk about. We want to talk about. So we wanted to talk about impossible stories in our creative space. We had a virtual funeral for the feminists, and we thought about the social safety net we can create for the virtual space. We wanted to have a social net for the pets and also disabled people. And for the resident artists, we went a little bit further. We wanted to talk about the aim as an artist, feminist. So we wanted to be toward ecofeminism, and we want to have our artworks reflect this ecofeminism. So I just give you a broad picture of our work. And I'm here, yes. Could you talk about your work briefly? I am 𝗟𝗢𝗖𝗔𝗟. This is a periscope. We use the tool periscope, the methodology of periscope. Most of the work is for the man and or for the existing generation. But most this periscope has the height of average women in Korea, 162 centimeters, and to be equal to their viewpoint. And we want to have the periscope on the view of the four-legged animals. What you see on the side is videos and films. So the art is centered on human being. So it has the same height as the human being, but we wanted to make our pets and animals to be able to see the art. So if we change the viewpoint or view level, we can have a different view. So that's why we have this work left. So I want to have a vintage ultimately about the future of the area I live in. So I'm a cartoonist, for your information. So I am, as a cartoonist, I make my work and I tell my story with a cartoon. Okay, we have 1 minute left. Thank you for introducing your work. So she is stationed in Jeju and coming to Seoul for this work. So we wanted to have a community and we want to have social safety net for the community. And we wanted to have ecofeminism and post-growth strategy. So thank you for the presentation.
네, 말씀 감사합니다. 다 참여를 못하셔가지고 좀 아쉽긴 한데요. 어쨌든 노뉴워크 이번 전시는 저희 전시에서 유일하게 좀 그 상상적 공동체를 일시적으로 형성한 그런 흥미로운 프로젝트였습니다. 다음으로 저희 2층으로 넘어갈게요. 예, 다이애나랩 작품 만나보겠습니다.
So this is a dianalab. So I am Yusun이 from the dianalab. So we have many artists involved in our project. I'm a little bit nervous because I got to introduce our work. We have a webpage at We Welcome All, and also we have we have a nameless on the map. We have been doing our work since 2019. So we have 2 works created for our project. So we have encountered fence before contains loosely connected human and non-human beings. So we have encounter face before video is contained in the video, and we have also nameless on the map, which starts from an invisible and illegible map. So our work starts from very tangible and instantaneous feeling as we are trying to create an exhibition. We believe it's a little bit bored to be or too bland to just explain. So we wanted to have a new work, two new works that are related to a welcome to all. We wanted to have eyes and walls, and we wanted to listen to the stories of the boundaries that we see in the daily life, and we wanted to have a video. What we believe important before creating a video is when we create a work and rather than translating that for people to understand, we try to start off by creating work that can be accessible for all. So for example, we have talked about how we can arrange our subtitles and brailles on the wall. So we have this long video created as a result. And we have the installation in Braille. This is the highlight of our Welcome for All. And making accessible to the blind is a difficult matter. We wanted, and there was no, almost no like web map based on Braille. So we wanted to make it accessible in types of map to the blind people. So the shop information can be read on the web page for the non-blind people. But we wanted to make the map readable for the blind. And we thought about not just making the blind people listen, and someone to say something for them to listen rather than see. So we wanted to, we thought about our Braille, which could be make our map accessible for the blind. And we wanted the various voices on Braille, various voices on the map, reflected on the map in Braille. And we had performance in front of our installation. We had a performer who knows how to read Braille, and there is the blind person, and they have the performance read at their own speed. When we had this performance, and when we have created map, we have a lot of involvement of artists, and it was a very memorable project, and many artists were involved in the trajectory of our project. And we had various artists take an intensive talk about our project. So taking this opportunity, I would like to thank you. Thanks, Q. Thank you. As I watched and looked at your works, I thought that your work has been very barrier conscious from the very beginning of your work. So we, Umali?
I was able to see Umali before the exhibition. So could you start your presentation, Umali?
Here you can see the installation and the exhibition about the project I have curated with Bamboo Curtain Studio in 2010. And the project actually lasts for 2 years, but after 2 years, without any funding, we just continue the project. So now I would like to explain a little bit about this project, which is Plum Tree Creek environmental project. So Plum Tree Creek is the kind of small creek in our neighborhood. So when I first talk about the creek with the founder of Bamboo Curtain Studio, which is Margaret Xiao. She passed away last year. But when we talk about the creek, she was really quite happy to work together with me. So we saw the creek was quite polluted in a way. And also when we ask people who make research about the history of the area, we realized that actually, let's say maybe 30 years ago, there was no so-called clean water in the area except the water from the creek. But nowadays, although we have tap water, but we cannot really imagine how people could use, I mean, they really rely very much on the water of the creek, for their daily life. So that was our aim to discuss with the people about the creek and whether we can make the whole the creek and also the environment be better. So at the time, I actually invited also artists from other universities and also architects to participate in the project. So here now you see the image. It was the very first project I did in this area, which called Breakfast Project, because there were a lot of agriculture area in this area. So I thought it might be interesting to invite people to talk about the meal we have, because all the vegetables actually from this area, but people don't really realize that, because nowadays the whole area became very much like a city area, a lot of new houses being built. And so I thought it would be important when we wanted to talk about water, maybe food would be a very interesting kind of beginning to ask people to pay more attention of the land and also the water. So this breakfast project, we did it from 2010 and so altogether, actually, I have done 13 times and include the very beginning one and also the last one to end the project. So through the whole project, people realized that, from the creek, actually, there were this agriculture and also, and it support our daily life. So we just use it. We use the breakfast meeting as a kind of medium to discuss the problem the creek has confronted. And after that, Margaret Shaw from Bamboo Curtain Studio, she also began to work with the elementary school and also the middle school in the area. So asked the teacher of the schools try to improve as part of the curriculum and idea, because people, although they live around the creek, but nowadays people are not really aware that the creek is in our surrounding, because part of the creek is being covered and part of the land's been built the houses, so that people didn't really realize that in our surrounding there's a creek. So through this action with the elementary school and middle school, so the teacher began to develop their curriculum with the artists together and try to explore our land and also the whole history. So it's really kind of very interesting process that later on also, I mean, not only the school, but also the parents of the school, been participating in our projects. And so nowadays that Plumtree Creek became a kind of quite well-known project to not only the community, but also in the art world, because that was almost like the first known one that artists work with this kind of socially engaged arts method and to engage the public to be involved in discussing the environmental issue. So nowadays, although we didn't continue the project, but the community has built a kind of association. We call it as a Creek Guard Association. So people will meet once a month and continue to taking care of the creek issue. So until now, thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much for your comments, Umali. And next, Luzaba Film Common is having some issues for their connections.
Hello, I am involved in the worship project. My name is Eunbi Kwon. We had videos and photos, and we have text works. I was involved in a topic called anxiety, and my work is based on the topic of the theme of anxiety. And I thought about how through my works we can share the anxiety and how we can relieve fear. And through that process, we had WASH project. Each individual has their own anxiety. Most of them believe there's a personal matter. And that goes for me too. But when we think about anxiety and when we look anxiety in detail, it comes from my personal issue, but it also comes from my surroundings. It could be my people I know or the society I live in. And there could be many other factors influencing my anxiety. So we wanted to share this anxiety with others. This WASH project started off in 2015 in Germany, Bernau in Germany. When I was in Germany, the question I get is, when you're in a foreign country, is where are you from? Rather than just answering, I'm from Korea. And when I answer the people that when I'm from Korea, in Germany, as they are also divided country at the time, they ask, are you from South Korea or North Korea? So the concerns and questions, I wanted to share that in WASH project. And the Bernau area in Berlin is an area with a big military base near Berlin. It was a big military base area in Nazi time, Germany. And it also a military area in a Soviet ruled time. So like during the ritual process, we had people surrounding, have the glycerin flavorings, and create their own soap. And they get the water from the creek inside the Berlin Mauer, and we do the washing work with the soap individual created. This 1988 soap is made by a grandmother, an old lady. The reason why she created 1988 soap is because it was the year she lost her child. The fear, the anxiety, or the pain she had for a long time were shared through this WASH project. And she made people sympathize her story and anxiety and pain by talking about her story and doing the WASH project. And so I was a foreigner in Germany, but this time together with a Korean Ukrainian who immigrated to Korea because of Russia-Ukraine war, we had this WASH project together with them. And Korean living in Ukraine and former Soviet Union has been living there for a long time. But even if they come back to their original heritage, Korea, they were seen as foreigner and they're being discriminated. And they face many difficulties as a woman. So we want to hear their story through our WASH project and making a soap together with them in Arco Art Center. And Korean, Russian, or Ukrainian, especially, one of them said that I don't have hometown and I don't have my home country. And even after this workshop, and that still is being remembered for me, and I cannot forget. Soap, as you know, is a ritual process to wash my anxiety. But when you use soap, it reduces in size. So with this kind of process, you can reduce anxiety. So that was my project. And most of the artists involved helped me a lot, and I was able to learn a lot from them. Not as a participant and not as a planner. I was very happy to engage with other artists. Thank you. Thank you for your project presentation. Next is Hyunjoo and Jo Gwanghee. Nice to meet you. We are Hyunjoo and Jo Gwanghee. We are involved in individual work. In 2019, we were involved in the Pepper Durumi project, 𝗟𝗡 project in 2019 in Pepper in 𝗟𝗡, and we have been doing this work to this day. We have we have an archiving work for the places and land and the residents of Pepper area in 𝗟𝗡. And another work we did as a project, we had the oral room of reading, voices heard outside. We had audience becoming both a listener and speaker who recites in the voice of an unknown person. Pepper village, I believe, is something very unfamiliar to most of the Korean people. The reason we continue our work in Pepper was the military camp area of the American military forces stationed in Korea. And we were interested in the people living there, especially the women and children living there. And the outputs of the project, as I encountered them, I wanted to thought about how should I portray them, portray the women's or the residents there. So I thought I wanted to have the research method based on my personal experience and I want this research work more relevant to me. So that's why I personally visited 𝗏𝗏 in 2019 for a long time. It was there was a closed space in 𝗏𝗏, and that was a US military only club. I didn't attempt to go or inside this club first, but we wanted to find a public space where everyone can access. And that was necessary for me to continue my work in 𝗏𝗏. So as I searched the location where I can work in 𝗏𝗏, I learned that the US military only club can be used as a gathering place for the residents and for the artists. For 4 years, we moved to various places. It was difficult for me to move many times, of course. But I moved from first to the military-only club and other place. But I had a chance to archive individual each space. Accidentally, I was able to archive the space used as an cultural or art space. And through this archiving process, I was get to know better about this 𝗏𝗏 and also make more research, more in-depth research about 𝗏𝗏. You may be wondering why the place is called 𝗏𝗏. 𝗏𝗏, it was used to called a camp town, and that is the only camp town left in 의정부. What is interesting is that 𝗏𝗏 in 의정부 is only 30 or 40 minute drive from Seoul. So it's not far from the capital city of Seoul. But it seems like completely different place from Seoul. Physically, it's close to, approximate to Seoul, but it is somewhat invisible from the main city. And if you cannot easily find a place unless you make an conscientious effort to find the place. So so before the military camp was, American military camp was there, I made an interview with the residents and asked about what was the place like before the US military space was there, camp was there. And it was a big land used by Japanese military during the colonial time. In 1945, when Korea liberated, after Japanese army left, the US military camp was established. So this land had a history of violence, and it's not so easy to stop that history. So you will continue to use the space as the space of violence or history for the history of violence. So when you use a plot or land as a garbage site, collection site, it's even if that garbage collection site is closed, you completely use that space for the similar purpose. So this 𝗏𝗏 is a space with a clear demarcation and boundary. and it's not being changed that much still. Apple used to be a pear tree area and used to be called 𝗟𝗡. 𝗟 means pear, 𝗡 means land. And then it is a grass indigenous to the area, and this then grass was filled this area, and people say that the name came into being. The then 𝗟𝗡. And if you look at the history book of the 𝗟𝗡, it said that it said there 𝗟𝗡. But when I look at the cornerstone that was standing at the entrance of the 𝗟𝗡, it is said that 𝗟𝗡 on the bus there was that 𝗟𝗡. So there's no consistent name to call this area. Anyway, the people there used to call 𝗟𝗡, and I believe that 𝗟𝗡 is a beautiful name, and there is used for in Korean letters, but it has a unique image, and there's a unique story to it. So I am calling it as a 𝗟𝗡. Sorry, we are running out of time. We are delayed. Okay, we can talk later.
So Lab C, are you joining now? We missed your presentation before, so it's time to invite the Lab C. And then we can invite the two artists who are exhibiting their work at the Space Fellow. Good evening, I am from Lab C. So we are also participating on behalf of the Lab C in Busan, in Korea, for the researchings and the finding out and exploring the project based on this space. We are the collaborating team. The name is Lab C, and I and 𝗟𝗡, the other artists, had very different ideas and different programs in terms of the ecological studies. And I'm actually based on the exhibition planning, so that by combining our work, so that we were able to found our organization Lab C 2018. And from that time, for the spaces and all the places, the references or stories and the local histories were our focus area. And at the same time, we have been also trying to find out any ideas and resources, and the research is based on that communities. These were the major programs for our collaborations. When it comes to the space and time in Busan, in Korea, and by analyzing the characteristics or national or the local communities, we have been also focusing a lot of very different spectrums. And so based on that, these very different aspects, when it comes to the localities, and these were the foundations for our collaborative programs, as we get the suggestions from the Arco Art Center. And as we have also encountering the local stories and some of the impressing ideas, or the 𝗟𝗡, the one of the districts in the Busan, with the delta, the area when it comes to the geological characteristics, so that any resources along the environments in the Busan were the one of the spaces with the accumulations of such the so-called the growing land on the delta area in Busan. So that was a very massive or suspensions or movements as the key themes that we have been getting the impressions as well. So along with the other artists and the general public, those knowledge and information were accumulated. And that from the time for our beginning stage of the programs, those impressions and emotions were also combined together with the new concept of the delta that has been also borrowed from the geological spectrums for us to expand our research and our exhibitions. And in Busan, some of the boundaries between the village and the oceans or the individual and group communities were the research areas for our artwork, but not only just on the cultural characteristics, but also any specific areas for our team. And the other artist, 𝗟𝗢𝗖𝗔, has been also working in terms of the more practical aspects. So that while the asking for the advices from the local communities, so that between the cultural space and the natural spaces, and these were the informations that we have been trying to explore and find out any informations. So the new cultural contents were another stage. So while sharing those information and contents, any questions or any inquiries or any very curiosities leading to the cultural spaces have been also continued. Throughout the processes for our research, the overall process of research cannot be only seen at once, requiring a long time and long efforts along with our team members like artists, so that there can be some of the foundations also leading to, or that can be also combined invisible aspects and perspectives of the artist. So that very limited number of the artists are now participating currently, but for the culture or ecological from plantations in the particular areas, and at the same time, any intersections of those combined factors like cities, environment, and all the overall environment could be so the focus that we can deeply understand and explore our senses. And these were our focus for our program. That's why we they're limited of the artists who are trying to explore very different aspects. And while participating in the exhibitions, of course, temporarily, the sharing processes could be more expanded, only just limiting limited the images, but we could expand more the time and space, requiring the more and long times for 2 months, with a very full support and with a lot of the visitors at the exhibition. And that exhibition was also very meaningful to us as well. And before that time, before we found the Lab C, we were also participating in the collaborative programs, but we are not originally based in Busan. But while moving down to the Busan, and from 2016 and 2018, we have been trying to explore very old spaces and the venues, so that we have been expanding our area of focus into the ecological aspects as well. Like if you consider the Busan, it's one of the area with very combined and very different spectrums of the pyramids and the ecological environments. And back in 1980s, some of the area in Busan have been transformed into the more eco-friendly spaces from the industrial complexes. Under these circumstances, some of the very specific and interesting spaces were our focus area. So that still we are trying to find out any remains from the old history, so that the new culture spaces have been our new topic for this year to further expand our research. Of course, in Busan, by combining with a lot of the categories, we are still focusing on researching for another next level. I have very limited time, and I'm sure that as we have or explore our exhibitions and the work, So let me wrap up my comments. Thank you very much for your comments. I'd like to move on to the specifics. Jelly Jang, could you start your presentation? Good evening, I am Jelly Jang. First of all, at the Space Felix, it's a little apart from the main exhibition venue, but I saw a lot of the visitors to our Space Felix. So not only my team, but there's other team artists and PM. We were able to have very active time and participation from the visitors. While we have been encountering a lot of the visitors, we have been focusing on the campaign, but public campaign activities, sometimes we try to find out any solutions as well as to suggest the very different perspectives. In this regard, we are not only focusing on just one particular area or one particular space or one particular topic, but at the 𝗟𝗑 Art Center, with the theme of the local in the making, we have been focusing how to really express those ideas through our artist work. And this is one of the programs that we can encounter the public community. So based on the random exhibition unit. At the exhibition here, as you can see here, to proceed our campaigns to a lot of the very different citizens. And we have also asked a lot of the different questions to the general public, how they think of their local communities. And based on their comments and their answers, that's why we were able to exhibit some of the name cards so that the visitors can have or put the words depending on their impressions at the 𝗟𝗑 Art Center. That was actually one of the installation projects that we have been conducting at one of the elementary schools in the northern Gyeongsang province. The school is also based on the dormitory-based schools. A lot of very top talents and students have come to in county of Hyunjoo in the Gyeongsang province of Korea, including only the weekend from Monday to Friday. They're staying within the dormitory and the campus area. But ironically, in the afternoon of the Friday afternoon, all the students are also going to their houses, and on the Monday morning, they're still having very repetitive the patterns for their lifestyles. Of course, the education for their schools are very good and important, but it's more important to have very good solidarity and the social communications within the members. In that regard, the relationships with the community was one of the areas for students to really still develop the interest and understanding towards their neighborhood, and their citizens were not really sufficiently understood. Therefore, that was the first starting point that we have conducted those programs from the beginning stage. And we are also really concerned whether those students were able to build their good communication skills. That's why we have spent about 1 year with the students to make or design the chair for someone else. And you can see that the project titled Random Neighbor Project, to the neighbors that they have not been encountered before. And then they can pick up the name cards like randomly to the very different types of the neighbors. They can pick and they can write down the impressions of the neighbors that they may think, like poor leader of the community, or very the work exhausting the seniors or grandmother, or the citizens or the foreigners would have taking a lot of interest in the environmental issues, so that they can really combine their different keywords to describe that they have been encountered from the neighbors. I'm really nervous for my presentations, but anyhow, at the Peaceful Looks, and we have also the 27 name cards on a random basis, so that up to 46 name cards, visitors can put and combine the name cards and vocabularies to express the visitors and the neighbors. And I think that that's one of the first attempts that we can explore the ideas and information to the visitors, for the visitors to make very easy start to describe the neighbors as well. And as we are joined by a lot of the different groups and teams at the Space Flux, it was a very meaningful opportunity to us as well, like the casual and with very easy access. The exhibition was also one of very successful, requiring a lot of the visitors. And that exhibition has been also invited by a lot of the visitors as well for any changes in mind or attitudes or concerns towards your neighbors. So that probably the message of our campaigns, one of the very meaningful tour to deliver the real and genuine messages. And taking this opportunity, I'd like to also express all the appreciation to all the artists who have also inspired us as well. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jang, for your comments. For this particular exhibitions, like process and more participatory programs were also involved. That's why the audiences have been provided their comments that the exhibition was very good in terms of the easy access. And next, we'd like to invite the Small Batch Studio at the Space Flux. Kang Eun-kyung, could you start your comments? Good evening. I am Kang Eun-kyung from Small Batch Studio. So locality recipe is the project with the concept of locality in Seoul for the Seoulites, the citizens living in Seoul. So based on their preferred food and locality and the recipe were combined for our project, and via on and offline platforms during the period for the exhibitions, so that the Seoul locality recipe was the programs that we have giving the opportunities to the visitors. About the 409 recipes in total were combined from the visitors. In the morning today, we only had about more than 300, but from the time by today, from on or offline participants, like joining by other different types of the devices, and now we have reached more than 400 in terms of the number of locality recipe for our project. While looking at the recipes, about the 130 recipes were checked by my side. So the visitors can fully insert their recipe from their own. And the number actually was exceeding from my expectations. So it was a very surprising outcome, as I personally believe. And regarding the number of recipes combined, and out of the 490 and the 130 recipes were also very significantly important to my perspectives. And from the time, from the project, I'd like to also share very interesting 3 key points with you today. On the official website, you can also log in the official website throughout my presentation at the same time, and still the on-site exhibition pictures as well on the slide. The first interesting topic was that in terms of the community-based recipe or the locality recipe was one of the very interesting topic. Like 𝗔𝗟 𝗜𝗡 or the 𝗙𝗡 𝗠𝗔𝗟, the very Korean, the specific food in the Kimhae, or the very oil-based rice cake in Jeju Island. These are very locality food preferred by the local citizens. So that we have been able to see very different types of the locality recipes. The recipes could be sometimes available from particular time or a season. So requiring very specific the recipes to make that food. And those flavors could be well concerned or discussed with the people who haven't eaten that particular recipe. While looking at the recipes, you can get a lot of the ideas to see their preferred flavors, especially in Seoul or other areas, depending on the regions. In particular, we have conducted the 2 offline workshops at Space Flux. And some of the audiences have been keep staying and living in Seoul. But while writing on his or her on the recipes and ꗟ𝗓, which is one of the Korean food, the rice cake, the soup with, actually that's a locality food in Wando Island in Korea with oysters. Of course, while he or she is living in Seoul, but the flavor was also really deeply related to the recipes preferred by the Wanju Island down of the down of Korea. And you also still see that some of the audiences have the written down or the 간장 계란밥, the rice with the fried egg and soy sauce, or any ramen recipes were very individually different, especially for the multicultural women or the foreign students or international students. They have written down their own recipes, especially from the Southeast Asian countries. So while looking at their own recipes, in Seoul could be one of the very new or strange places for a lot of the people, but I was also able to see that each of them have very different cultural backgrounds based on the recipes that they have written down. So these were also very interesting points to me. The third point here is that depending on the preference for their flavors, absolutely the meals with like the meals, they can have a lot of the people all together. As you can refer to from the title, like 엄마표, like my mom's kimchi stew, my mom's any fried rice, or the recipes learned from my friend. There are some of the titles also involved with the targets or the subject that they have had that meals together before. So of course, to make the food, only recipes, not only recipes, but also the people that they have had that particular meals were also very deeply intertwined from the titles. That still to have the meals sometimes very related to the people that we have the meals together. Of course, we have one more day until the very final day of the exhibitions, but to search my areas, and you can also see that the two recipes in Seoul and 문화밥 is a culture fried rice, and the 𝗟𝗢 in Korean, which means that stew with the very different types of the vegetables. I see that each recipe has no such particular boundary, seizing a lot of the very different open boundaries. And I see that from this particular project, and the food was very meaningful tool for interaction and communication among people. And at the same time, to record and share the present in time was very meaningful and valuable project, as we have very successful outcomes. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, Ms. Kang. And a lot of the people have also participated in your project, as I can see. Thank you very much for sharing very interesting comments. And probably we are still behind by 10 minutes from the schedule, but thank you very much once again to all the artists to keep your time. Of course, I have been listening to your stories a lot of the times, but I really hope that the audiences are enjoying the time right now. So without the break, I'd like to continue to the second part. A lot of the reviews and the stories have been shared from very different artists altogether. So I'd like to also open any feedbacks or any comments. So while gathering and reviewing those audiences' comments, this exhibition was one of the very participatory exhibitions with the audiences. Are there any questions or any inquiries that you can first raise? So any questions will be welcoming from the artist first. What about Jelly Jang? Well, you have some inspiration from other artists' work. Can you share any comments or any questions? Thank you. Rather than just making various suggestions or ideas on particular artists and the work, but I'd like to also get to more ideas on workshops. So 4 workshops were conducted and 4 one-workshops, and we have been invited by about the 10 audiences, and for 40 minutes, we have been interacting our ideas regarding our neighborhood. And I felt it was very warm and very gentle, that we had very meaningful time with the audiences to exchange our ideas on our neighborhood. So rather than just the exhibitions, and probably I just want to know other artists' emotions or the feelings while you conducted workshops with the audiences, and how you felt and how you had some inspirations. That would be also great to share. So the question could be really awkward, but I'd like to also share more ideas with other artists on workshops. So Slowbot Studio, also mentioned before, and the dianalab share their comments on Lab C, also share some of the side events, as well as the Komunitas Kopi with any workshops with visitors. So, and yes, now we have received one question from one of the audience. On the second floor, I'd like to ask a question to artists on the second floor, especially on the second floor of the Arcus Center. And most of the work we're dealing with the marginalized people and the vulnerable group from the local communities. So that probably you may be concerned about the identity to proceed for your work. Of course, with the individuals, with the people, that you cannot fully share identities with yourself or the visitors and other neighborhoods. So now I see that, and particularly the other people, the other persons within the Arcus Center and Exhibition Center, and probably some of the misinterpretations regarding the artist's work only based on the materialism. So I just want to know any ideas from the artist, how you really wanted to approach to the audiences along with your aesthetical perspective. So dianalab, could you answer that question first of all? So while working on the work, and these are the major concerns that we have to focus regarding the other peoples, to understand them. And probably the ethical perspectives were continuous, the topics that we have been focusing on, like with other friends and other artists. It was possible because, and probably, of course, we may have some of the boundaries each individual can only contribute to, or individualism or individualistic could be also started. For instance, especially the queer or LGBTQs or the vegans, any marginalized group or like vulnerable group of the communities, for each individual, like their own identities. And while they have some intersections with their identities, and that's our ultimate goal, that we can all combine, have very good interactions with the very different types of the identities with these very different groups. That's our focus so far. Regarding the identities from each individuals, yes, can be also sustainable, absolutely. What about the Kim Hyunjoo? Of course, your point was the common that we have been filled, but in fact, in one of the areas, so in particular area, like the village, the Tepper, that was our focus based on that particular perspectives. We first expected to have like 1 in 5 years for the initial stage or initial time of the project, but that time got longer. But for 4 years, as we were participating in the particular project, and that's actually the concern. For instance, like the work-based ethics, but beyond that, while encountering and have some dialogues with the neighbors in that community, and absolutely, and some of the neighbors could have some changes when it comes to their lifestyles. The dialogues with the neighbors or the residents in that community, they may also feel not really open-minded to share the frank ideas to us, to artists. And still there, sometimes some of the neighbors or not really clearly understandable why artists should also work on the project in the particular area. But despite some of the project and the programs with the successful outcomes, and then probably that these were actually meaningful to us based on the mutual recognitions, like between artists, me, between I and the other neighbors. But based on that, the mutual recognition and mutual cooperations, listening to the other people's opinions and to make the others to share the ideas. And sometimes the people are not really sure why they have to share the ideas, but every time we try to encounter the neighbors, and every time we try to have the dialogues, and each time of the dialogues was like becoming more powerful. And the boundaries of the topics has been also blurred over time, so that the residents, like the citizens in that community, started to express or share their very frank ideas. Sometimes we cannot really call that phenomenon exactly. Of course, the therapy or treatments could be also involved, but probably while sharing your own ideas and with other people, and sometimes even though like sometimes you may face that some of the points that you cannot really express your ideas and topics, so that you can also have very good opportunities to share your own ideas with other people. So generally, every time we have the dialogues with the citizens, of course, we did not really try a lot, but sometimes the time to them was very meaningful. So that leading to more time with meals and also take a walk together. This also led to a lot of very good and continuous the mutual moments with the citizens over and over again. So under these circumstances, the messages I'd like to share with you today is that, and probably the dialogues themselves, of course, can lead to the more outcomes, so that in our inner sides experience, like the exhibitions or any art centers, some of the perspectives or any tools for communications and interactions could be more expanded. The artists sometimes try to conceptualize, but not only that, we can also share the feelings and emotions with the audiences or citizens, like throughout the processes for our work. Of course, there may be some invisible narratives. Of course, I don't really need to say and share all the ideas regarding the invisible narratives, because I'm sure that all of you are familiar with this concept. And the more we introduce ourselves and who we are is such identities in time and space, while we are having that dialogues with the other people, can be also more built. But when it comes to our identity, our own, and still we can see that a lot of very different thoughts not connected together to really express our own identity. There may be some invisible moments, invisible points, and sometimes we are not really sure of ourselves at some point of the time. That's why we need to continuously listen to the other narratives and the other stories, so that we can reflect ourselves by listening to other people's episodes and other people's stories. So that throughout the processes, not only just giving only unilateral introduction, but also listening to the other people. There may be some invisible narratives or invisible the moments, so that the role should be also more involved as a part of the art communities. So that we also have to focus on delivering very appealing the points to the audiences and the visitors. That's our work and our part as artists.
Yes, as I was preparing for this project, for the project that has been going on for a long time, based on the community, one of the stories that comes to me that I hear is that when it is being exhibited in the Art Center, who is the main player of this works of the projects. and how I can visualize our experience that we experience outside. And in the process, and in the connecting with the people in the residence, there has been a long process. But as you sympathize with the people, I think has been very, the method of sympathizing with the resident is very various, and that has been also experienced and felt by the spectators and the visitors of the project. And there was a question about the sustainability and this temporality, or this short time or temporality is something that I wanted to talk about, or why we have the name of the local in the making, and why it could be the starting point of the sustainability. And we want to talk about that with you today. And I want to talk this with the Mr. 𝗟𝗢𝗖𝗔𝗟 artist 𝗟𝗢𝗖𝗔𝗟 through artworks. Had the connection, tried to have a community with the people of the residents, and based on your experiments and through based on your artworks, you have had a sustainability in terms of the relations of the people. So as for the local in the making for the sustainability, so please tell me about your experience.
For us, I think at the very beginning, we try to develop a certain strategy to work with people. As I just mentioned, we have been working with elementary school and university in the neighborhood, because those are people who live in this area, and for them it might be easier to participate in the activities, and also for them it might be easier to understand the issue we are trying to raise. So I think it was mostly very successful in working with elementary school, because on the one hand, we were helping the teachers to develop their curriculum. And some teachers are also really from the local community. So for example, one of the teachers whose family is in this area for generations. So he knows a lot of people in this area. So he helped the students, his students, to try to make further research. So later on, they develop, also design a website and to tell about the story of the whole area. And he also invited his students to make interviews with the local communities. So I think with the possibilities, and also to have the whole school to involve in the project was very important, because those kids are from this area, and even when they graduate, but they still live in this area, and they will continue their their involvement in the project. So I think that was one of the aspects of the project, that we really wanted to have the local community involved in the whole thing. And the other is, we at the very beginning, we didn't know who will be interested in the project. But then we found out there were actually some eco-experts in the community. And so we invited them to help us to make research further. For example, there's one expert on the insects. So he later on volunteered himself to invite the community to help to make the research on the insects every month. So after 2 years, we already have all the data of the insects of this area. And those with this data, it will again invite other residents to be more involved in the whole research later on. So I think all those kind of strategies are very important. It will make the whole project grow even without artists. So nowadays, like this expert, he continue his research with his own students from community university, so that later on they build a kind of creek watch, you know, a kind of grassroots association, and so they are keeping this kind of research continually. So that's really one of the very successful aspects of the whole project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyway, the relationship that we have formed for temporarily, or the sharing of the thoughts with the residents expanded with the people. Even if the artist will no longer be staying, the experience, I think, make their relationship with the people relationship sustainable. So one of these projects is a good example. Eunbi, anything you want to add? I think this is the same concern shared by the artist, thinking about the relationship forming. I do my works mostly involving a relationship with the people or connecting with the people. The reason why I'm taking this approach is because I want to stay away from the system, and I want to show invisible in the existing system visible. For example, the outside people, those who are not involved in the existing system, be it a minority, the handicapped, or the marginal people, I want them to be evidently shown in the works exhibited in the exhibition center. And that has been my approach to the works I have done so far. I wanted to, I think that you have to find the answer by forming a relationship with the people surround you. You have to think about who you are and the people around you and the engagement of the people surrounding you. And you should have that kind of foundation for the works, and your works can be is something that can be presented and represented at the site. Thank you very much. Not only the second floor works, exhibition works, there are the solidarity works that are based on the places, and they are not based on places. And there is a solidarity and networks that were the key values and core values of the sound. And any artist?
And what's interesting from the lab C, that probably you have visited in a very new land, new country for the temporal interventions, and you also expanded your network with the very new communities and the new culture. So you have been putting a lot of efforts as a cultural spokesman. When it comes to the interaction with the citizens, could you also share any comments or any answers, Lab C? First of all, as we encountered with the citizens in communities, Of course, the research included the processes to understand and get to know their life. Not only just limiting on the dialogues, but also some of the topics or any areas like to expand on more topics so that we try to expand the topics for our interest to further collaborations and the programs. Like just beyond the identities for individuals, but also probably it's better to have more involvement and the more experiences from very different people throughout their very different senses. Of course, there may be some the very temporarily the triggers that can disappear within a very short period of time, but we wanted to continue those interactions with the citizens. And for instance, as we discussed with one of the senior citizens, we really wanted to continue the dialogues and relationships with those particular, the senior citizens, so that, in other words, we really wanted to really share, or sometimes you would like to blur the boundaries for the communications with the citizens. And of course, this requires our more efforts and dedications as part of the artist's work. Sometimes we cannot really feel fully aware of that we absolutely need to share those ideas with other types of the people and community members. And I'm sure that as we have also continuously focus on your particular research areas, and hopefully, and these are the common factors with other participating the artists. So rather than just making the actions into reality right away, but still we also need to consider some of the residents and the neighbors to have more dialogues as much as possible, so within the very individual perspectives, there may be some of the temporary points, of course, that we can have the dialogues, but sometimes we also need to better to expand and continue those interventions and interactions as well. Thank you very much for your comments. And I think that for these exhibitions and after the pandemic, and the locality has been accelerated, has been also more the visual and has been more the concrete beyond the time and space. That's why to all the artists, and you are, and yourself can be also the people and the team members as well within your localities and local communities. So it's also time that we can also share more ideas and more responsibilities as artists to really further expand. So I'm not really talking about only expectations, but also anything or aspirations that you can combine or accept any transformations from the localities or communities. Is there any idea? The changes in localities, communities, and then probably, of course, we have been focusing on the communities or outside of the communities, but communities could be also more flexible and more interconnected. So within the communities, like the people can be more involved when it comes to input and output of the people. So I'm sure that there are a lot of very different spectrums that you can consider. So while you proceed your project, I'd like to also know any ideas from any artist. Okay, Komunitas could share your comments. Thank you.
Ya, berkaitan dengan keberlanjutan tadi, menarik karena ya terutama bagaimana kita memposisikan diri kita sebagai bagian dari warga itu, dan kemudian menjalankannya sesuai dengan kebutuhan kita, apa yang kita butuhkan, dan kemudian ya semacam belajar menjadi warga yang baik, kemudian terus melakukan apa yang kita butuhkan dengan lebih terorganisir, dan mungkin dengan modal bahwasanya kita bisa menghubungkan beragam praktik dengan praktik-praktik kesenian ataupun praktik lainnya, itu juga menjadi sesuatu yang sangat menarik untuk dikembangkan. Dan begitu juga dengan proyek ini. Sebenarnya saya juga berharap kawan-kawan ingin datang ke Solo, kemudian berbagi pengetahuan tentang berbagi pandangan dan inisiatif di Solo. Coba Eng dibenerin, Eng.
Okay, so about this sustainability, especially this is very interesting, especially in regard on how we put ourselves, how we put our position ourselves as a citizen, as a common citizen among the people, just a common people there, and to do our needs with a more organized practices. So it's more like learning to be a good citizens, but without neglecting our needs also as an artist and how to organize it. And what is also very important for us is to connecting the interdisciplinary practices, not only among artists, but also from other backgrounds of knowledge, and how to develop it further in the future. And we also here in the Solok, we hope that we can invite other artist participants from these exhibitions to come to Solok, and also to share perhaps their own practices in each localities, or, you know, to give kind of insights regarding the practices that have been existed in Solok by far.
Thank you very much for your good comments. So in this regard, for this particular exhibitions with the theme of the local in the making, that can be also local in the making from the audiences, so that the stories from the local people and the real and the practical, the solidarity could be also more expected, so that in terms of the sustainability, we also like to have more opportunities in that regard. So NoNewWork, could you also share your comments?
So our team leader, can you talk? 𝗟𝗢𝗖𝗔𝗟, please talk. So we try to define what the relationship is, and there has been a lot of discussions. What defines relationship, and we try to understand relationship on the community, based on the community. NoNewWork is based in Seoul, but we want to represent minorities and those who are marginalized in the society as well. So that's why we have formed a virtual feminist residency, especially residing in Seoul, and we try to find a relationship and try to introduce ourselves to the community. As I planned my work in other area, and as I will, there was a concerns, and also there are a lot of thoughts that I was involved in the project, and I took a very careful approach during the process. I don't know whether we have fully observed and understood the topic of in our project and works, but the biggest happiness from our project is that we were able to introduce a good artist. And this virtual community we have formed, which was somewhat temporarily, even because it's temporarily, I believe it could we could do some experiments that as we are temporarily. And I think, I don't know, I cannot organize myself, but anyway, we can be more sustainable in that because of that reason. Okay, let me say it shortly. I think my answer is related to what others said. It is the same concern shared by a feminist artist, how we can relate with the people in the community. We wanted not just approach the residents, people who are not just residents, but who share the same concerns we have and who understood, who want to know about subject. No, the participants of the NoNewWork we were able, our project allowed us to experience that we are the main player of the project. As we have the same concern, and we were able to understand the people around us, and we had many ups and downs and difficulties in our project. But anyway, that made our relationship much stronger. And I think that made our work much better. And it took us a bit of courage to be able to have a relationship and on our project, and to make our project more sustainable. I think the homework, the work ahead of us, is to think about how we can have our project have it in a more sustainable manner. Thank you for your remark. I understood you as a feminist art group as I watched your NoNewWork work. The direction of your work, I think, is not just confined to the feminism, but I think it's expanding to the community as a whole. The artists involved in the project and the works that you have created also involve the people and involve the people who are non-professional, who did not get the formal training. Anyways, in that respect, I think we had no barrier project, low barrier project as a result. Anyway, you had a very good, interesting subject covered in your works. One critic said that it is a problematic work. It is because the critic, is so used to the existing type of work, and your work is a little bit out of the box or out of the system. That's why that critic made that criticism of your work. But your work, I think your work has not just be a low barrier, but you have made the viewers understand the narratives of your works by looking at your works. For those who are familiar with the visual installation, it could be unfamiliar to them, and we were not sure how they will see your work. The works that is focused on the process itself, not the outcome, I think it can lead to, I think it can become an output itself, and also it can lead to a bigger result and also relate to the committee. So you're an artist, but you're also a planner. So I think that we can talk about that issue now. If we need any exhibition method, what elements do you have to focus when you plan for the exhibition in the future? We want to have the many artists involved in the project. So anyone who wants to answer this question? I'm not trying to answer that question. Yeah, I want to talk about the relationship. So I Googled what relationship. It is making a formal and informal visit to form a relationship. Am I the only one who are not familiar with the definition of relationship? Anyway, if that is the definition, I think I'm not interested in forming the relationship with the community itself, but I am more interested in the normal side of the community. I was in, I live in Jeju Island, and I am there to make a social activism for the works. Anyway, so I didn't have these anyway, and for this, if you are looking for the formation of relationship with the community people, I am considered by others as the people who are associated, but I don't see myself as that. But I feel, even though I'm not affiliated, I don't feel affiliated, but I still feel sympathize for people think of it. Thank you.
Yes, like beyond just normative, but just in temporary interactions, but probably you also have to focus all the whole group of the population. Of course, sometimes there will be the very temporary relationships that can also transform the communities and localities with a lot of the impacts, so that we duly hope that we can more the whole populations and the group, furthermore, that we can have built the communications and interactions in the futures as we also focus on to do so. So based on the topics that we are discussing right now, is there anyone who can raise any comments or any questions? Okay, OverLab. The presentation, I was very nervous because so that I really gave very short presentation. But while listening to other artists, let me also add some more comments and opinions altogether. Indeed, of course, I have been participating in this exhibition, but based on the characteristics and history of Gwangju, and I'm also conducting the more additional projects and programs to research the characteristics of Gwangju in Korea. When it comes to the diversity and different aspects of locality, these are my focus area of research. When it comes to the local characteristics, and there will be a lot of the exhibitions dealing with the localities in Gwangju. Therefore, when it comes to the more joint, the collaboration program via different media or very different ideas, I really wanted to exchange very diversified topics and ideas. That's why we have been focusing on project. Now I am also participating in those particular locality programs for last 10 years. And it was also possible thanks to the very different aspects from the very different artists through the exhibitions with the theme of the local India making, and direct translation will be the temporary intervention. So that we really hope that we can expand our research topics. So when it comes to returning to our own individual programs and artist work, so that we can unfold and expand our more opportunities. So not only just the limiting our own identities, but also we like to expand more research areas in the future as well. Thank you very much for your comments. And 𝗟𝗓 𝗠𝗔, as you're also dealing with the 𝗟𝗓 Island, and recently you have been expanding your areas beyond the 𝗟𝗓 Island. So along with the localities, I just want to know about your future plan. And you can also add some more comments. And first of all, localities and the the characteristics have been conducted for the last 3 years. And I was now able to see very clear ideas throughout my presentations beforehand, but it would be also better if we meet all of you in person, if we can. And while looking at other artists' work, and I also felt that there were some opportunities that we can expand our collaborations programs in the future as well. And the exhibition were very inspiring to me as well. When it comes to the planning for new exhibitions, like new directions or new ways to encourage more artists, then one of the questions you raised before, and probably the directions for our future project and the programs, let me share with you my future directions for the follow-up programs. And so far, based on the stories and topics that we have been discussed so far, but when it comes to the cultural artistic communities and the cultural artistic, the factors, along with the shipbuilding, the industries or workers could be more involved. Sometimes we can invite artists, but at the same time, we also have to see and explore the roles and responsibilities as artists. So for my future programs, I'd like to focus on the research to share like the more exhibitions way. For instance, like heavy industry exhibitions dealing with the workers and industry complexes, blue-collar workers or citizens, all of these potential groups for them to participate in this very large public exhibitions. Kind of the heavy industry biennial could be one of the area that I like to plan in the future, so that each area of the artist, or I can invite new artists who have not been involved in that particular industry before, as majoring in the artist and art. And while I am having the discussions with the artist, and every time I may face some limitations, and to expand those, the expectations, the limitations, sometimes it's very hard to invite stakeholders, non-stakeholders who are not involved in this particular industry. So they would like to encourage them also to be one of the participations and also stakeholders as well. Thank you very much for your comments. And naturally, I was also able to listen to your opinions and future programs from artists. And regarding the exhibitions, of course, the exhibitions and could be also well conducted, not only just within the localities, but also other areas beyond and outside of each local areas as well. And the time was not really enough so far to really gather and all listen to all of your ideas. So regarding your interest or any topics or future activities, these are one of the very curious questions and inquiries. So I'd like to also invite anyone who can answer. And I'm also seeing that the team for the BAPO, so you don't really have to limit your comments on exhibitions or work. So could you share any topics of interest or any future plan for your programs in the future? Yeah, first of all, yes, we do have plan, of course. But as mentioned before, you also share very good comments and good points, 𝗟𝗢 𝗟𝗓, just previous presenter. And while moving down into the paper, this area, and I have been concerned about the positions and the stance of the art. Why we really have to be the central area and the roles for arts, and what we really have to do and contribute as artists. And I think that for artists, let me share with you, this is the sphere of the artist community, but rather than just making the stance on the central area, but I think that we also have to be on the perimeter of the circle. So that I think that we also have to the one who can really rotate the sphere. We should not really be positions only at the core, only at the center. But while listening to other artists, I was very interesting to review other artists' work and lab see artists' work. I was very inspired to really visit to the oceans and to the communities around the seas, the oceans. And one of your artwork was very beautiful. And those like the resonance and the emotions that I have been encountered, the very different types of the artwork, was also one of the momentum that can absolutely change or the touch upon the meanings or expressions. So that now within the communities, like only based on the capitalism, and I think that the artists should also contribute our more efforts to really make and rotate the spheres of the artistic community to set the directions, so that probably the stories that we need are actually to be more mediated via artists, I guess. But within this area, Pepper, and probably last autumn and last year, on the entrance of the village, the Pepper, there's a flag of the 𝗟𝗡 and the new village campaign flag. And whenever we see that the flag itself was very old, but some of the flags were really rarely seen in villages right now in Korea. So I see that probably some of those flags, they could be one of the flags which are not been rarely seen. And sometimes I ask the residents, and then I was able to take off all the flags to look surrounding areas, the beautiful. But sometimes for some particular season, like for instance, like 1/4 of the whole year was the time that we tried to take off the flags. Why? Because at the end of December, but we also replace them into the new flags around the villages. Of course, new village movements, I called the 𝗟𝗡 movements during the 1970s in Korea. We are now living in the time, but now the flags look very old. So this kind of the ironic movements, but the temporally or non-temporally, the factors. And when it comes to making interventions from the artist, and absolutely we can change, but sometimes we also need to think of invisible the spectrums as well. That can be also impacted by other external circle as well. So on the entrance of the village, those symbolic places have been changed at this point of the time, that particular space. And then the public or non-public spaces could be more combined. And we try to focus on making and transforming those non-public spaces into public spaces. Thank you.
Do so. And so anyway, we have to be temporarily. So we have no official plan for this year. Anyway, we usually have no exhibition every 2 years. So anyway, it's a good start for everyone. I see dianalab, please. We continue to do the work in, we welcome all in Jeju Island. In mid this year, we will upload new Jeju map. In Jeju and Seoul, by end of this year, we will continuously have a small exhibition. And we have a little bit of research covering a difficult topic, and we will release a book by this year, end of this year. Hope that we can talk about this book when it's ready. Next is Lab C. Kim Hyunjoo said that no, want to Gwangju. I want everyone to think by looking at our work that they want to come to Gwangju. So in that respect, we are somewhat successful. many thoughts and many ideas have been shared with various artists and participants of projects. For us, for Lab C, we are doing the works is doing the outside exhibition, so it's a little bit different from other works that are exhibited inside, indoors. I think by having our exhibition outside, I think the people who see our works outside, not just the visitors, but who just pass by, the residents, change as well. And that makes the artists and the creators very happy. And I think what you can continuously do is, rather than you have to change yourself first, and you have to start changing yourself first, and then seeking to change yourself outside and change your relationship with outside. Anyway, it's really a good opportunity for us to get involved in this project, because we are able to not only focus on our project, but other projects as well. So we are trying to find salty scenery. So we want to find something related to something, the identity that has vanished in Busan, and it relates to the animals and plants living in Busan. So we want to, I don't know how those will be reflected in our works. Anyway, we want to do something related to the sea and something salty as our next work. 𝗂𝗡 𝗂𝗡. Anyway, we have to work. Yeah, I have to create something. So I have to continuously create something. The subject I'm interested recently is memory and consolation and grief. So I'm trying to develop my work related to these topics. In this exhibition, I was so happy to view and see the works together with the handicapped people and the blind. And it was very happy for me as a creator and also as a viewers or the visitors of work. Anyway, people saying that they're so happy to see the work they can access and they could understand. Through this project, I realized that my work was focused on a visual aspect only. So I tried to make my work not only covering the visual side, but non-visual side going forward. Anyway, and I think this will be the last work I'll be working, almost my last work with other creators and artists. And the other artists works really so hard. I was so concerned about their health, even to the point of concerned about their health. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to show my work. Thank you so much. So, sharing and having a conversation about artists, I think is a good result of this project.
Ya saat ini kita masih fokus mengembangkan pos ronda, khususnya mengelola bagaimana pos ronda itu bisa menjadi ruang untuk mempresentasikan gagasan dan inisiatif warga yang agar diketahui lebih banyak warga di sekitar, dan kemudian menentukan beberapa tema-tema spesifik yang sebenarnya sedang masih kita pelajari, dan yang kemudian untuk direspon berkolaborasi dengan praktik-praktik seni yang yang bisa kita hubungkan dengan seniman-seniman lain.
So far, we are still focusing on to developing the post-ronda space to make it a space that can actually exhibit and convey the ideas or initiatives from the people, from the citizens. So other citizens can see the initiatives and these ideas. So exhibition more for the people, so they can interact and see each other. And then also we are still continuing the research to understand further about the key values that we gain through the dialogues with the people. And we also hope that we can conduct more collaboration with other artists, between artists and also the people in the Kampung Jawa. And then perhaps exhibit it again in the post-ronda, because we consider it as a crucial space in the village to talk about a better life in there.
And now I also feel that the Komunitas Gubuak Kopi is visiting Korea for the first time. And you have shown very active participation and communication with the audience in the beginning stage, like the performance and the domino games could also lead to very good and meaningful outcomes in the later stage. So thank you very much for your contributions and commitments. And now I'd like to invite Jelly Jang. And now also feel that this is a part of the participatory exhibitions. Of course, we have faced some of the difficulties, and we really hope that we can expand into the more digitalized, like as we have done the locality recipe, as we are concerned more opening and expanding our areas into that digitalized way, so that the online or archiving systems is another stage that we can focus on with the audiences. And after these exhibitions, and still the exhibitions and artist work could be disassembled and assembled again as well, depending on the future progress. So Wonju County, as we return to the Wonju County in the Gyeongsang province, and then those exhibitions, the work could be also shared and discussed with the ARCO Center. Thank you very much for your efforts. Thank you very much. And I was able to see that you have formed very different types of the neighborhoods, men and women, regardless of the age and the gender. We also see that a lot of the interest and participation from very different group of the people. Thank you very much. With regards to reusing and recycling the materials after the exhibition, yes, that's also another point, because as we focus on the eco-friendly exhibitions and to all artists, we also ask all the artists to participate in the eco-friendly exhibitions, so that the domestic productions was the one of the area leading to the eco-friendly movements and campaign. The lapses, the materials, or lozava, film copy, the carpets, or breakwaters, or the cocoa pad, all the materials could be also shared as a part of the flea market, so that about the 90% of the materials used for the exhibitions will be also reused and recycled, thanks to your all participations as well. Thank you very much once again for your hard work. And from the beginning to the end of the exhibitions, and I truly hope that all of you have been putting a lot of enthusiastic effort. So taking this opportunity, thank you once again very much for your hard work. And I'd like to also wrap up this webinar, and Happy New Year to all the participations and participants. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much.